call this meeting to order. Welcome to the City Council business meeting for Wednesday, July 14th, 2021. Please stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So before we begin, we have some required notifications. Please note that the city abides by New York State and the CDC's requirement that unvaccinated individuals continue to wear masks indoors and remain at a 6-foot social distance, which includes the city hall and at public meetings like this one. If you're vaccinated, you do not have to wear a mask during this public meeting or be socially distanced. However, if you appear ill or present any COVID-19 symptoms, staff may ask you to leave, distance, or wear a mask regardless of your vaccination status. The meeting is being recorded with video and audio. Roll call, please. Thank you. Can you hear me better now? Okay, thank you.
Councilman Scaringi. Councilwoman Riley.
Present.
Councilwoman Friedman.
Present.
Councilman Burns just stepped out. He should be right back. Present. And Councilman Strawn.
Present.
Councilman Scanlon.
Present.
And President Resnetti.
Present.
That's all 7 here.
Okay. Let's move on to approval of minutes. Councilman Scaringi.
Thank you, Madam President. I ask for unanimous consent for the approval of the minutes from the business meeting of July 21, 2021, and the special business meeting of July 26, 2021.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we have a public hearing to set for our next meeting, Mr. Clerk.
Binghamton City Council and the Mayor will hold a public hearing regarding the proposed zoning amendment to rezone the following parcels from R3 Residential Multi-Unit Dwelling District to C1 Service Commercial District, 20 Mendelssohn Street, 22 Mendelssohn Street, 28 Mendelssohn Street, and a portion of 151 Laurel Ave, and an inside lot. The public hearing will take place during the next regular City Council business meeting at 6 p.m. on Wednesday, August 18th, 2021, in the second floor atrium located in City Hall. Residents wishing to submit comments may do so electronically by emailing their comments prior to 5 p.m. on the day of the meeting to clerk@cityofbinghamton.com or in person during the meeting. For any questions, please contact the clerk's office.
Thank you. So now let's move on to public comment. City residents are welcome to speak tonight, and you'll each have 5 minutes to discuss city issues. Please, I ask that you are respectful. Mr. Clerk, could you please tell everybody how to participate?
To participate in tonight's public comment, please come up to the podium one by one. Be sure to sign in, and please announce your full name and address for the record. Thank you.
All right. First, I would like to say that the whole situation with last week was brought upon because people, for some reason.
Please state your full name and address for the record.
I
Thank
wrote
you.
it down, but it's Sauka. I live in Binghamton on the east side. So I would just like to say that having special meetings to vote on things should be unacceptable if the public is not around. That's just, if this is supposed to be a city council that's representing constituents, you should always want to hear from them. But anyways, I'm here to tell you that we have been engaged. We have been cooperative. We have humbled ourselves before the complexity of the housing system, and we have been very patient. We have participated in government-led task force, provided research and testimony to power brokers and the press, hosted community education events, and respectfully and repeatedly requested that the public money go towards opportunities and services that advance the cause of the housing justice for everyone. I understand Rich David put out something about $6 million putting into for housing. But the thing is, seniors, of course, we want seniors to be housed, and he even put the language of low-income people in the advisory, which is great. But he left out a whole heap of people. He left out people of domestic violence abuse. He left out disabled people. He left out people who have been formerly incarcerated. That's very hard for them to find housing. He left those people out. And that funding is going to First Ward Council, which is cool, but they're gatekeepers, and a lot of people don't have access to First Ward Council, especially when you've been a felon, you went to jail, you're on substance abuse. They get crossed out of a lot of lists. So let's keep that in mind. And also making sure that we put $1 million towards the Community Land Trust, because they actually are community. And back to my little thing. So despite seemingly holding the moral high ground with our compassion for community, strength of conviction and contributions in the service of those less privileged, we are losing this battle to force motivated simply by profit. The COVID-19 crisis had housing challenge in Broome County and across the country, disproportionately impacting Black and brown households that were already facing the highest risk of housing insecurity even before the pandemic. The end of the state moratorium on eviction is looming, and thousands of households right here in Broome County are at risk of displacement and of homelessness in the coming months. Local shelters and motels are filled with people in need of emergency housing. Many homeowners will lose their homes in the coming years, and cooperative investors are already sweeping into our area, seeming hundreds or even thousands of rental units in huge portfolio transactions that will largely be made exclusively to students. This stark reality presents long-term threats to community control and wealth building opportunities to our local residents. We have run out of patience and will no longer defer to out-of-touch negligence and dismissive elected leaders. The Housing Justice Coalition will advocate, organize, and mobilize to ensure we shift the housing system in Broome County from one that is exclusive, unjust, harmful, wasteful, and traumatic, to one that is inclusive, just, healthy, and sustainable, and empowers all residents to thrive. Our work will be guided by these principles that we collectively believe. Housing is a human right, is unconscionable, and Broome County consistently demonstrate one of the lowest availability rates of affordable housing in New York State.
You have 1 minute.
Yet elected officials have refused to consider proven solutions. The government at all levels must enact bold policies in order to guarantee that every resident, regardless of income, has a safe, affordable, healthy place to thrive. Housing is the foundation for building and sustaining equitable outcomes for individuals and communities related to personal and public health, educational attainment especially, and economic opportunity.
Thank you.
Rebecca Rathmel. Do you need address for your record as well?
Yes.
170 Prospect Ave, Binghamton. So last week, we yelled, and we will yell again if necessary. But tonight, we are here to speak to the $46,184,674 in federal COVID relief funds allocated to the City of Binghamton in connection with the American Rescue Plan Act. Though broad community input has not been requested, and there has not, to our knowledge, been an effort on the part of Mayor David, his administration, or the Republican majority members of City Council to identify the needs, primary concerns or COVID-related struggles experienced and expressed by City of Binghamton residents, we have gathered to demand that the council allocate 50% of American Rescue Plan Act funds, approximately $23 million, towards supporting neighborhood stabilization efforts with a particular focus on addressing the tremendous economic and housing challenges facing residents who have been disproportionately impacted by COVID-19. As evidenced by the City of Binghamton's own 2015 study, an analysis of impediments to fair housing, stark racial and economic disparities existed in the housing options available in our community even before the pandemic. Black and brown households, particularly single-parent households and families with children, have consistently faced higher cost burdens and lower homeownership rates than white households. In 2019, a year before the national emergency was declared, the city demonstrated a deficit of over 3,500 affordable rental units available to its lowest income residents. While almost 60% of all renter households in Binghamton experience unaffordable cost burden, a disproportionate share of which are Black and brown households, that rate increases to over 90% for extremely low-income renters within city limits, many of whom also experience high rates of home health hazards and housing-related harassment by slumlords. According to the city's own research, census tracts that had the highest concentration of poverty in 2015 are the same ones that are now being disproportionately impacted by COVID-related housing instability. In other words, the pandemic is exacerbating conditions that the city has known about, yet disregarded, for the last 5 years. Allocating these funds using the lens of racial equity and justice is consistent with the U.S. Treasury interim rule, which strongly encourages governments to prioritize those communities disproportionately impacted by the pandemic and those that have been harmed by historic inequities. Overall, Binghamton residents face a severe shortage of quality, affordable housing. Efforts to proactively preserve or develop new affordable housing have fallen far short, a reality that, once again, consistently and most dramatically impacts the city's most vulnerable and marginalized groups. The economic impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic are forecasted to exceed that of even the 2008 financial crisis. Combined with the looming eviction crisis, the pandemic is expected to result in an unprecedented number of vacant, abandoned, tax foreclosed, or distressed properties that will further disproportionately impact people of color and low-income individuals and families in Binghamton. As a coalition of people with lived experiences of housing insecurity, homeless service providers, housing advocates, and concerned citizens, we stand tonight in solidarity of vision that the American Rescue Plan funds provide an unprecedented opportunity to reimagine and equitably rebuild Binghamton's neighborhoods and must be allocated toward this purpose.
You have 1 minute.
We believe that to meet the Treasury's call for a full and equitable recovery, we must make a significant investment in housing needs, as access to safe, quality housing has been proven to increase public health and wellness, reduce violence, improve educational attainment, increase household wealth, and even increase longevity. Specifically, we request $23 million from the City of Binghamton's ARPA funding allocated to investments in rehabilitation of vacant, abandoned, or tax foreclosed buildings into quality affordable housing, new construction of affordable housing, including rental and homeownership opportunities on vacant lots, preservation of occupied homes in need of improvements using grants to homeowners, acquisition of naturally occurring affordable rental properties, multi-unit, to convert to social, cooperatively managed, or shared equity housing, or to transfer to local nonprofits working with vulnerable populations to expand permanent supportive housing, community ownership,
Your
and
5 minutes is up.
permanent affordable housing.
Kamisi Black, 1 Downs Ave. Beautiful. I'll finish this. Our local housing system has been in crisis for more than a decade. The 2011 flood exposed significant lack of quality, affordable housing choices in Binghamton. Since then, study after study has documented all aspects of the local housing crisis. Real estate professionals are signaling the alarm of institutional investors entering the student rental housing market. A broken assessment system continues to exacerbate these trends and housing challenges. Within the city, half of all children live in poverty, exposing too many families to the dangers of irresponsible slumlords and hazardous living situations that can damage a child for life. Nearly 50% of the students in Binghamton City School District will switch schools during an average year because of housing insecurity, which disrupts their educational and social development. The tax auction privileges speculators and slumlords who, with cash, can purchase properties on the cheap, moving us farther away from the housing justice, one property at a time. The lack of tenant protections and a rental inspection and licensing program leaves the poorest and most vulnerable families and individuals at the mercy of bullying landlords. A lack of safe options for those without housing is actually resulting in preventable deaths. Committing half of the ARPA funds to finally address in a multi-layered and coordinated manner the traumatizing and inequitable barriers to safe, affordable housing, which have been exacerbated by the pandemic, is a moral imperative. More and more mayors across the country are announcing significant investments of the ARPA funds in housing initiatives similar to those described above for two reasons. One, they are learning how other programs funded under ARPA are available to meet local needs, and two, a historic infrastructure bill in Congress that could fund local water and sewer projects, among other items, is likely going to pass in the coming months, if not weeks. Therefore, prioritizing housing with the ARPA funds is emerging as a top consensus among the most forward-thinking local leaders across the country. Yes. There are existing organizations, initiatives, and partnerships that are delivering the above goals, but at a scale so small that the nominal addition of quality, affordable housing units never matches the number of units lost to demolition, deterioration, or conversion to student or luxury housing. The solutions have been present for years. What has been missing is vision, leadership, and sufficient funding. With ARPA dollars, there is an immediate opportunity to scale up and strengthen the capacity of existing initiatives and programs to dramatically improve housing for thousands of Binghamton residents over the next few years, which will improve public health and wellness, household wealth, educational performance of children, and neighborhood safety and vitality. There is also an unprecedented opportunity to rethink this work to achieve more equitable outcomes that center those community members most impacted by the pandemic. Sincerely, the stakeholders of Broome County.
Sarita McLeod.
And your address for the record?
You now? Awesome. My name is Tina Chronopoulos. I live on Laurel Avenue in Sophia Resinitis district. So originally, I wanted to do a performance piece tonight. Reading back to you the kinds of things that some of you said on Monday. You know, stuff like, I want to know where the outrage is and where the line is. And things like, this is a joke, an utter joke, disgusting, utterly disgusting. What a joke, unbelievable. And then I thought, you know what, that's stupid. I should use my own words, right? Why should I parrot back to you the kinds of things that you say when you're over there on your moral high ground trying to lecture your colleagues on the Democratic side and the public when we address you? I was appalled when I saw what happened this past Monday. I was appalled because Sophia Resiniti and some of your other colleagues, you were quick to be annoyed and outraged about having been insulted last week. You made it about you. You made it about you when it's about the community. And when your colleague Angela Riley, the only black person on this council, said, I felt threatened by the police, do you know what you did? You talked over her. You interrupted her several times. You said, I was threatened. And when Angela Riley said, I actually was threatened too, you dismissed her. You lecture me, you lecture us about decency, about kindness, about humanity, and then you don't even show that to your colleagues on the council. That's what's disgusting. You care more about foul language than about the racism in this community. You care more about foul language than what the mayor is up to because he doesn't follow the rules and neither do you. You care more about foul language than using the money that is specifically related to COVID-related issues, and you claim that there is a way that you can use it to fix the city council roof because that's mitigating COVID. Hello? Some of you don't even want us here. Why do you want to meet in a bigger room? And by the way, I still don't have a good answer as to why we cannot continue to phone in and make our comments that way. That would avoid the police presence, the overtime that we are paying with our good money, and you could save money that way. But no, you're like, I need a safe space. I want to feel safe. And if you made the comments online and via the phone, then people in the community who are afraid of being yelled at and lectured by some of you on council could just make a phone call. Gosh, I have 2 minutes. That's very exciting. I don't know, I have a definition of a hypocrite, but I'm sure we know what that is. What else? You want to know why people in the community are frustrated? Because you smirk when we make comments? I've been paying attention for over a year now. You know, I'm almost obsessive about coming to these meetings, about making public comment. I know I have seen you, how you sit there, hold your body when some of us talk, and I have seen how you operate. You don't respect your colleagues on the Democratic side. You work together all the time. You don't share information with them. You make decisions behind back doors. Remember that Veolia stuff that went down? You want me to believe that you care? You want me to believe that you pay attention? You almost never ask any questions at all. You're just like, looks good, stamp it, looks good, stamp it. You say that you care about the workers at the plant? No, you don't. You only started caring when the community made a ruckus about it. Anyway, it's kind of getting boring here.
1 minute.
Oh, great. The last thing that I want to say is that when I first came to Binghamton, in fact, when I first landed in New York City, I'm from Germany. Things aren't necessarily better there, but they are for sure better in some respects. I thought I'd arrived in the third world country. I'm not kidding. Third world country. Do you know why that is? Because this country is ruled by money and by power. And I couldn't believe it when I started paying attention to what happens in this city. You are on city council and you hold on to that petty little power. You get your 10 grand a year and you get to be able to say, oh, I'm on city council. I'm so important but you don't do anything for the community. So please don't be surprised if we continue to be annoyed and outraged when you don't do your job and don't listen to us. Thanks for your time.
Hello? My name is Robert Wilson, 144 Beethoven Street. At last week's sham special meeting to loot $660K of our COVID recovery money, Councilmember Strawn had a message for the public in attendance, which was, "Y'all are a joke. There's a right way to do things. It's not about the right thing. It's about the right way. You could have come last week for public comment. This was a joke." Apparently, Councilmember Strawn needs to be reminded that he's been silently and willfully disregarding every dissent raised during public comment since he was sworn in, acting instead in accordance with the block vote rubber stamp that has become this body's sole function in city government. Perhaps I shouldn't say silently, since Strawn did respond on one occasion this spring, chastising dozens of callers for having the audacity to question the mayor's plans for the water treatment plant, simply because he's intent on privatizing it after having lit $300 million on fire, failing to fix it. Judging by the actions of the council majority over the past year and a half, the, quote, right way to do things includes blocking every attempt by constituents to influence the policies that affect them, making repeated misuse of special meetings to punish minority members who have the gall to introduce some semblance of due diligence into these farcical proceedings, and waiting with the eagerness of baby birds to swallow whole whatever legislative turds the mayor pinches off. At a meeting this winter, Scaringi and Strawn prattled on about golf for an hour before the adults on council started raising questions about the mayor's latest round of shenanigans at the water treatment plant. At that point, the right way to do things was apparently to send a distress signal to the mayor so he could storm into the meeting unannounced and berate the minority women on council for an hour in between bouts of, let's call it, conspicuous sniffling. Coincidentally, this was also the first and to date only post-COVID city council meeting for which the video record vanished without a trace. Last week, President Resiniti did things the right way by once again taking up the mantle of the real victim here, claiming that hordes of hateful meanies were at that very moment marching to her home to terrorize her children. Now, it's impossible to know whether this was a deliberate fabrication or a genuine paranoid delusion, but either way, the result is the same. The imaginary threat of violence in Resiniti's imaginary persecution diverts attention from the very real violence perpetrated against this city's most vulnerable populations by an incompetent clutch of self-righteous and morally destitute scoundrels. So it's no surprise that Strawn's rare interjection slandered as a joke residents who have devoted their lives to a right thing, namely to securing the most basic human right of having somewhere to live, for the people whom the mayor and council majority knowingly and willingly condemned to housing insecurity, homelessness, and death. Despite Strawn's contemptible remarks and Tom Scanlon's insidious smirking, the housing situation in this city is not a joke. Over and over again, year after year, week after week, housing advocates have provided city and county officials with statistics and stories of suffering along with policy recommendations for proven solutions, and over again we are ignored, silenced, insulted, and smirked at. Your behavior is contemptible, and so we regard you rightly with contempt. Now, we're all well aware that you don't listen and you don't care, and we know there's nothing we can do to curb Scanlon's bootlicking and misogyny or to prevent Resiniti from shouting, "What about me?" over the voices of constituents whose lives she's destroying, or to disrupt Strawn's quiescent uselessness or Scaringi's ongoing impersonation of a concerned human person with integrity. If the lapdog majority had bothered to listen to what the public has been telling you for the past year and a half, we wouldn't even be here right now. Working families in this city don't want to give up what little free time we have to come down here and have our pleas for accountability and basic decency met with smirks and eye rolls and sneers from the likes of you. I assure you that everyone here to a person would much rather just live in a just and equitable city run by informed, competent, responsive, and compassionate people who act responsibly and fulfill their duties. Instead, we ended up with this gaggle of cowards and crybabies and bigots who spit in our faces every week in subservience to a mayor so malevolent and dishonorable that no self-respecting person would bother to cross the street to piss on him if he was on fire. In closing, fuck you, fuck the mayor, fuck landlords, and fuck the police.
That's hard to follow. Most of you know me. Maybe you don't. I'm Joanne Civiletto Baker. I live on Shenango Street. I don't follow politics, but I do follow causes. And I've lived in this city for 20 years, and I was a founding member of the Young Professionals, and I've loved what's happened in the city as far as economic development, and I've hated it because I've watched the marginalized become more marginalized. I'm here today because maybe you've never had a moment where you didn't know where you were going to sleep that night. Or maybe you had a moment or didn't have a moment where you didn't know where your kids were going to sleep. But there are so many people in our community that have. And I know that maybe you're just not thinking, or I hope that maybe you're just not thinking about those people when you're thinking about putting money that belongs to them into infrastructure that doesn't belong to the people. It belongs to the political class. So if you could just take a look at everyone that matters here, it's important to consider that this money is set aside for the marginalized. This building is not marginalized. That's all I have to say.
Hi, I'm Jackie Wood. I've been here for 57 years, my whole life, and it is not getting any better. It's just getting more sad.
Can you state your address for the record, please?
Yes, I'm sorry. 4 Roosevelt Ave, Binghamton, New York, 13901. I've been here, as I said, all my life, and as a disabled person, I cannot find a place to live. I'm couch hopping. I paid my Social Security taxes for 40-some years. I should be able to find a place to live of my own. Most I can afford is a room. Guess what? They all go to student housing. Do I look young enough to be a student? There's a lot of people that haven't been here as long as I have. And they don't see how much worse it is. All they gotta do is come up and ask me. I want to be proud to be from Binghamton again. I want to be proud to say I've lived here all my life. Well, guess what? It's getting worse. We need to make housing available for the disabled, for the income strugglers, low income, I should say. Not just for the students. Okay, maybe students bring money in. Yahoo! So do the rest of us that have lived here all our lives. I've been supporting this city for 57 years. When is it going to support me?
If you don't know me by now, I apologize. My name is Thomas Gray, a resident of Binghamton, and my address does not matter. I'm from all sides of this city. I represent all sides of this city. And last week, I'll admit it was disgraceful to see the community come out and try to dissuade you from making the right decision, making the wrong decision to make the right decision, and you still made the wrong decision. And then to hear the excuses, and to hear on Monday how you would berate other members of the council and just lie, make up lies I mean, I had the whole thing on video. There were expletives used, but none directed in the way that you say that they were directed. Nothing that you say happened, you're lying. And so you do this frequently, and you do this often, and you do this at the expense of the community. And you want to talk about feeling unsafe when there's a group of police that come up here huddled up. How do you think that makes the community feel when we talk about community safety and having better relationship? That doesn't help. That's not what creates that when the community sees that. And that was Tom Scanlon that did that because he was afraid. He doesn't like being held accountable, just like the other four of you don't like being held accountable. And it's quite sickening. And so when we talk about safety, the community members aren't elected to speak like this and to have to do this. You're elected. So if you're worried about your safety, maybe you shouldn't be here, because I get threats all the time. You understand that? And I'm a community member that lives here with the rest of these community members. Some of you aren't even from here and don't live here. And so for you to ever make accusations about the intention of the community, or to try to make an example of what it was on January 6th and you felt unsafe, no, this is the community holding you accountable. And you don't like that. So you want to cry wolf every time it gets bad for you. But you won't stand up for what's right. You are the most shameful group of people I have ever seen. Ever. You should be ashamed in yourselves. And the people that are connected to you feel ashamed in you as well. Your families feel ashamed in you. Your neighbors, your community, your colleagues. Used to work for BU, and I hear bad things about the way that you treated people there. So let's really talk about what this community needs, because it's none of you. And much respect to the two women on city council, Angela and Aviva, that continually stand up and do what's right for the community. I know sometimes Joe votes questionably, and I see that he's working on it, but the rest of you are just foolish. This isn't about politics, it's about human decency. And you don't have that. I'll tell you this to your face, with your security around, with the police around, it doesn't matter. You're afraid. And no longer will this community be used and abused by you.
Hello. My name is Mary Clark. I live at 24 Laurel Avenue here in Binghamton. I was pretty astounded when I heard what happened last week, that we wanted to use the money inappropriately to do something our city budget should do by itself, fix its own city hall. The money that came down from the federal government was designed to actually help and provide services for people who were undergoing COVID. I commend Angela Riley, Aviva, Joe Burns. They actually, when they heard the money was coming, they had Senator Schumer actually come and join us to say how to spend the money. Overwhelmingly, because you don't like to hear input from community, but overwhelmingly on that Zoom meeting, there must have been 70, 80 people on that meeting, and 2-1, almost unanimously, the number one identified need was housing. And I see it every day in my office, at least 2 people, if not more, every day come and tell a story about housing, of the need to find housing, of families looking for housing. There is no decent housing, affordable housing available for families. And we need to address that. I commend my partners here who actually spoke up last week and actually drove, and it wasn't a commendable thing on the mayor. The mayor was responded and said, oh, I better do something or I'll look bad when I run for state senate. So he came out and said, I'm going to put up $6 million. He was a little sketchy on how he's going to spend that $6 million. $6 million is not enough. We need at least half that money, $23 million, to deal with the situation of lack of housing here in this community. So it's a good start, but it doesn't even come close, and it's very murky on how the money is going to be spent. I recommend very strongly that we actually put the money into the community land trust, which is really talked about. We need at least $1 million, possibly $2 million, to go into the community land trust that is headed by people of color, that deal with communities of color, deal with low-income communities, and can best utilize that money. And we need to make sure that money really gets to the community rather than to just pet projects and good old boys. So that's a critical need that we need to see. And I'd like you to all take that up next week to say, yes, we want to designate at least $1 million of these dollars to the Community Land Trust. We want to see more money go to housing. This is a critical need, particularly when we're sitting on impending evictions. Right now, the eviction moratorium hasn't even been lifted. And what we need to do, what other cities have done, is to actually pass good cause eviction, because what we're finding is people get evicted without cause, whimsically, so people can turn their family housing that houses a 3 to 4 family household into student housing. That's where the money is, and that causes huge problems in our community. So I'd like you to look up good cause eviction. They just passed it up in Albany just last month. We need to do some things to protect our citizens because our children are exchanging schools. It's just a nightmare out there, and you need to take this seriously and stop making faces and stop making us feel like we're doing something wrong. We're doing something right. You're doing something wrong by not listening to the community, fearful to go out and ask the community what they need and want. Because the city council members who did that actually heard what the needs are. And we have one of the lowest rates of affordable housing availability in the entire state. And you need to take that seriously, and you need to address these needs because it's harming our families, harming our children, and that's who you should be looking at in our area and not trying to fix a roof that should be paid through regular tax dollars. And thank you for your time.
I don't have a speech plan. My name is Marissa Robinson, and I live on Leroy Street. I was born and raised in Binghamton. I don't have a big speech plan, but I'm sitting up here, and I'm looking at you guys. Sophia Restinetti, you look very bored. You have the nicest house on the block, like a coliseum. We're here. See all these police officers that are here right now? You guys are here. They're here. They're on payroll. We're here, the people are here out of passion because of the passion that they have for this city. That's why we're here. You understand? You're not hearing us. You're not hearing the people, but I'm going to tell you something. They're watching. Everything's being recorded. We're watching. They're watching you. Everything that you guys do is going to be history. So what side of history are you going to be on, Sophia? What side of history are you going to be on? You don't care about us. You don't care about the people. You've poisoned our waters. What happened with Veolia? What happened with that? Now you have people that don't even want to be involved in politics. They were never involved in politics. Now they're involved in politics. Now we're getting involved in politics. We're going to bring it to you every single week. If that's what we have to do. Every single week. Giovanni, I talked with you last week. And you sounded like an idiot. Excuse my... For real, you contradicted yourself multiple times. What's the priority? Is a priority homelessness or is a priority a roof? What's the priority? Because you tried to explain the steps that you have to go through for it. You explained it to me. You broke it down. I told you to break it down dummy style. And you still contradicted yourself. But you voted for that roof. And then to see that video of you berating Angela Riley, you're a disgrace. You are a disgrace, sir. And that's really all I have to say. But remember, we are watching. We're watching you. All of you.
My name is Manny Griffin. For the record, again, like Tom, I don't feel safe saying my address on file. Numerous of us have been getting death threats for speaking out against you guys, so I don't feel comfortable, and I don't think that should be a priority in this meeting. So I won't be saying it. I came here to show support for my people. I'll take the gum out of my mouth because no matter what I say or what I do or how I look, if I come here in a snapback fitted or a black t-shirt and some sneakers, if I come here in a suit and tie, you guys won't listen to me? Do you guys care about the people in this city? In the city, we have people, residents that have been staying here for 30 years, residents that will stay until they die. They will be buried here in Broome County, New York, and then there's students, and then there are investors that don't care about this city. They come into this city and they suck the life out of this city. The city is dying. Look at Kmart Plaza, look at the north side, go to any area, whatever district you represent, look at the abandoned houses. Look at all of them. Look at all the housing that are for students. You cannot find a single home for a single family with 3 bedrooms. You cannot find it. It's impossible. And if you do find it, it's a piece of shit. Marked up to $1,200 a year. When I came in here today, I knew that something was going to be fishy, so I started recording for my safety because I don't feel safe here. When I came in, there were 3 officers at the door screening people. No COVID check because you know COVID, we're in an epidemic or pandemic right now, which is killing millions and millions of Americans. No temperature screening, no have you been out the country, have you been in contact with people of COVID-19, none of that. They just were doing counts, and it was because apparently there's only allowed 49 people in this building right now. Because last week there were 2 exits, and this week there is only 1. There's 1 exit right there, and there's an exit that we just came up from. And this is what the fire marshal said, and I said, why is there only 1 exit? He said he didn't know, and he's the fire marshal, which made the rule. That's what systemic racism looks like. And if we're talking about, I wasn't here last week, but if we're talking about safety, I had to debate on whether or not I should bring my son to this because I didn't know what was going to happen. You guys have his cage in here like animals. You guys have 10 police officers for how many? How many people? That's not 40. For probably about 30 people here, right? But I commend you, whoever brought their little kids back there to this, because this is history. When you guys grow up and you guys see this, you guys got to find a better way. Because our mouths, our voices are falling on deaf ears. Deaf ears. Same thing. So what I have to say is disgusting. This area, it's getting the life sucked out of it. All these shops are closing down. Like Marissa said, in 100 years from now, we'll all be dead. We'll be in the ground, cremated, whatever have you. We'll all be dead. You guys can have a decision to make whether you guys will just be another name who denied rights to their citizens, or you can make a difference for this community. So that's all I have to say. It's your choice what to do with it, and I hope you guys make the right decision and are brave enough to step forward. Thank you.
My name is Leah. I'm not going to say where I live. As far as you guys know, I'm homeless, okay? I have a family of 5. I was born and raised in Binghamton, New York, and I always wondered why my mom always had small places for us to live. And I thought when I had kids, I would be able to provide them with a comfortable home. I have 4 children, and we are stuck in a 3-bedroom. I make great money. I have worked hard to build my credit and just do all the things that I need to do to get us to a comfortable space. But every time I go look for a home, everything is student housing. And 1% of that is places where you don't want to raise your family in. The homes are broken down, they're overpriced, and it's ridiculous. You guys have money to accommodate housing for the low income, and you're putting it for a roof. That's not going to help us. You wonder why we come here and we're angry and we're enraged, and it's because you guys don't pour into the community that makes us. You pour into resources that's not going to do anything to help us, and that's a problem.
My name is
Repeat my name, Salka Valerio, Binghamton. I'm here because I'm sharing somebody else's
You already
story.
spoke.
But I'm sharing somebody else's story because they don't have access to the public meeting. And the reason why is because y'all did this count thing, and she doesn't take elevators anywhere, and she has to use the stairwell. And they're denying her access to come upstairs to share her story. And her story does need to be heard, and it should be important, and it's not fair that she doesn't have access to this space. Because people who have developmental disabilities, just because it's not physical, does not mean it's not a disability. So she should have access to this space, and she's being denied that access. So I am here to say her story for her because she doesn't have access to this space, and she's black. So there we go, systemic racism at its best, when there's 4 police officers telling her in her face that she can't access the stairwell and that the disability that she has is not a disability. Absolutely disgusting. But anyways, this young lady lives in a place and is owned by a slumlord. Nothing gets fixed. She has called code numerous of times. The landlord doesn't listen to her complaints. And she's afraid to continue to call code because then the building will be condemned. Then her and her children will be out of a place to live. And then guess what? Then she goes to DSS. Access to emergency housing is full to capacity. She doesn't have access to be at the Y because the Y doesn't take 16-year-olds. That is disgusting. And now she doesn't even have access to a public meeting to share her story. That is disgusting. It's not right at all. So Back to reiterate that money.
Hate to interrupt, but could we get her up here somehow? Could somebody,
Listen, I done talked to the police officer. I done talked to the fire. If you have the power to do that, it'll be absolutely great for her to come and share her story.
Just to clarify, the stairs would be okay?
Yeah, she could take the stairs. She just can't take the elevators. She doesn't take the elevators anywhere.
Is there a reason why we can't open up the stairs?
Oh, now there's, the magic pill. Okay, great. So I'll go downstairs and get her. But anyways, thank you for allowing her to have access to the space.
Hello, my name is Olamni. Can anyone hear me? Okay, I'm sorry. My name is Olamni. I was wondering about something that tended to bother me about.
Please state your address for the record.
No, I don't have to give you my address. Again, before I got interrupted, I was wondering about, because I've never seen anything like it. How much money do y'all get from Binghamton University? I know y'all at least get some kind of money in some fashion from Binghamton University. And I know maybe the mayor pockets some of it, but either way, I've never seen anything where a college pushes out the people. I've never seen that before. That's a new gentrification I've never seen. Usually you have to worry about white folks moving in, but never thought a university would do that. Because I'm from where I'm from. The university includes a community. And there's something to say about an HBCU that includes its community and understands its community needs help. So whatever money you get for being in a university, which probably you missed out on because of COVID, you should be thinking about changing up and investing back into your community. Thank you.
I'm Noah, and I don't think it's fair that y'all want to spend this COVID money fixing a stupid roof when there's a bunch of homeless people living in Binghamton. The parks here are whack, and I'm tired of seeing cops around my school. Also, y'all all are ugly and old.
Hi, I'm Kim Cuddy. I live downtown at 5 Pine Street. Can you hear me now? I'm Kim Cuddy. I live at 5 Pine Street in downtown Binghamton. To be honest, I would much rather be walking my dog on the Riverwalk tonight, but I'm just so appalled that COVID money would be used to fix the roof of a building. Are we living in the same time and place right now? There's a worldwide pandemic happening, and the needs in this community are so tremendous. The idea that resources that are set aside to help, various communities would be used for something so superficial is just so shocking to me that I just wanted to come down here and go on record to say that. I hope the City Council will reconsider the use of these funds. There's lots of different models that are happening all over, in New York State and across the country for good use of these funds that are being made available. And, the Housing First model is really an important one. I work in mental health, and housing is so critical for public health and mental health. I hope you'll, reconsider that allocation of funds and listen to some of the community members here who are much more informed than me and have some really great ideas of what to do with that money. Thank you.
While we're waiting for that, for the next speaker to come up, I believe we have one email, correct?
So we have,
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see you. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I'm kind of silent like a ninja sometimes. Hi, my name is Tam. I've been living in Binghamton since 2016, and I'm an unemployed graduate student currently, but there's many issues with BU that I'll just take up with them. I just want to take up the issues now with the city council. You know,
I'm sorry to interrupt. Could you just lean a little closer to the mic? We're having trouble hearing you.
Yeah, I have a sore throat. And so I was very surprised to learn that New York State has yet to spend its COVID money. And this city, or this county in particular, is in dire need. Many of us who moved to Binghamton from larger cities, I must say, were quite surprised at how dilapidated the Binghamton or Broome County at large is. We're very underwhelmed by the public services as well as the municipal agencies here. And so with that, I'll tell you a story. I just moved in this summer on June 1st into a new apartment to discover, well, I moved in with JJB Property Management. I hope you know their name. JJB Property Management. I moved into an apartment where there was a corrosive wall. It looked like mold had eaten into it for who knows how long. It was brown, it was wet, it was disgusting. The apartment has 5 windows. 3 of them were locked. And that is a fire hazard, first of all, because what if a fire happens and I can't get out of the apartment? Thirdly, there was an electrical problem where at one point I was told that if I had plugged in and I saw a yellow light on the electric socket cover, I would have been electrocuted. So my life has been in danger. So I tried to get it fixed, but I was ignored by JB Property Management, and only after bothering calling the code enforcer for 2 weeks straight, 5 days a week, leaving a message, did they finally do something. And when I mean something, they got someone to open the windows who ignored the corrosive wall. I even have pictures of it. And I was treated very rudely about getting the electrical walls covered because they are by sinks, 4 sockets by a sink that did not have an aerator to prevent backsplash. And they gave me problems of just covering the sockets properly. And I finally did not get anything done for 2 months until I emailed every Broome County legislator on every email that I sent to shame them into finally doing something. Because I was told by a code enforcer that that they have no capacity to check for mold. So that means that the landlords can neglect their property without any concern for health, and the city will not hold them accountable. I think that is negligible, that is disgusting, and irresponsible. Because Broome County has a whole web page of maybe like 2,000 words talking about how disgusting and unhealthy mold is, and it has no one to check for it. And the fact that that wall was so disgusting shows that it's been there for a while. I was misled about the state and condition of that property, and they have been allowed to do this. It's not my first instance of terrible housing. There are thousands of students, thousands of people who have this issue. And the fact that the landlords conduct themselves this way means that they have been allowed to do so. And so you guys are guilty. And even when landlords lie about...
1 minute.
Thank you. And even when landlords can lie in front of legislators about it. They had then told the legislators that they had painted the wall And I'm wondering, when was this wall painted? Did I miss it? Was I asleep? Did they come in without my knowing, even though I said that they must have my permission to access the properties in order to do so? And I let them know that they were lying. The legislators, BB and some other people, I forget their names now, were on that email. And when I showed them the pictures of it, then they go, oh, well, I refused it. So every step of the way they lied, but yet there's nothing to hold them accountable. So I'm just wondering, what is your job? The fact that this town is still negligible, it shows that you guys profit off of it. You sit here, you look very comfortable, you're well dressed, your hair is done well, you have time. I don't understand how you could live in a town where people are so destitute without any conscience. That means you're unfit
Your
for
5 minutes is
governance.
up.
Thank you.
Hello. My name is Becky B. I live in the neighborhood next to BCC in the Shenango Valley School District, so I understand that I am coming from a point of privilege. I am 25 and I've lived here my whole life. I work as a social worker where I've been for 3 years, and I wish that I could stay in Binghamton, but I already have plans to move out of
Becky?
here. Yes?
My deepest apologies.
Uh-huh.
You said you live in the Shenango Valley?
Yeah.
Madam President, motion to suspend the rules so Becky can speak, and if we could request the clerk to give Becky a full 5 minutes, please.
Okay, I apologize. Thank you. Thank you.
Sorry about that. It's just a logistical.
I didn't know.
No, that's not your fault at all.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I'm not too much into politics. I apologize. So I would love to stay in the Binghamton area, but unfortunately, I'm 25 and I still live with my parents after having 2 bachelor's degrees because I cannot afford to live anywhere in Binghamton. And so I already have plans to move to Syracuse, unfortunately. I'm in nursing school currently. But I'm also here to speak on behalf of my clients who do live in the city of Binghamton because they're sick and they are 50 and up with 2 physical or mental conditions, and they are on Medicaid, so they are poor. And I think a lot of you don't know what the housing situation is because you're not in the field. You don't experience it all the time, and I don't experience it from a first-person basis either. However, there is nowhere to move these clients. There is nowhere. If they are homeless, you can get on waiting lists, sure. They're 2 years long. And that's for disabled and elderly housing. And I have people that aren't officially disabled yet, and the only place I can move them is Binghamton HUD. And their waiting list is closed. You can't apply. There's nowhere for these people to go, and I really care about them. I care about my city. I want the funding to be used in a proper way, and I ask you just to consider that. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Terry, and I wasn't going to speak today, but I'm hearing my community.
Can you state your address for the record, please?
I live on the south side of Binghamton, and I've lived on the south side of Binghamton for 40-some years, and I've been in Binghamton for 50 years. And I can remember an alive Binghamton. I remember a Binghamton that had things for the residents to do, for the kids that live here and grow here to do. We didn't cater to the college. We didn't sell out our homes to slumlords that are getting $800 a room for a bedroom a month. Now, I don't have anything professionally to do with housing, but I'm a people person, and people come to me. And I have had 3 people come to me this month trying to find housing for families. They need 2, 3-bedroom houses or apartments. They aren't picky, but they just want to get it for less than $1,300 a month. And to me, that is crazy. That is crazy. I've lived here my whole life. I rented apartments for a lot of my whole life. A 3-bedroom apartment for $650, $800, $900 if you're in Conklin. That's reasonable. That's reasonable. And the people that live here and work here and are trying to raise their families, they can afford that. Housing is a human right. And having our human beings of our city cut out so that somebody can make a really big profit off of some college kids that are not going to be here and grow our community. They don't all stay. They don't decide this is a great place to live and raise a family. You're selling us out for the short game. Think of the families, okay? I have children that will not have grandchildren if they can't get out of Binghamton. I won't have grandchildren here. They're not going to know what a great place it is. Reconsider what you're doing. Please. Please. Reconsider what you're doing. And no more cops in schools. Let's not go there. You haven't done anything that we asked for in the reform, but one of the things that we did ask for was no more resource officers in the schools. They don't stop crime. I have personal stories from children who have been harassed by resource officers. They are basically the sanctioned bullies. So don't vote to renew your contract with the police to be in our schools. And think about your community. Think about, there won't be a Binghamton for Binghamton University to call themselves. We'll just be University City. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Autumn. I used to live in the Binghamton area. I just recently moved into the Endicott area. So if you would like to waive the rule so I can speak, I would really appreciate it. Okay, thanks.
We've already waived.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, that only has to be done once.
Okay, so originally I was denied access into this meeting, and that was solely based on a mental disability of not being able to take elevators. I'm severely claustrophobic. So I tend to have to take the stairs very often. This is even in the cases at my job. I felt very isolated and denied access to a meeting that's extremely important, especially because this is money that's being taken out of funding for housing. In addition to that, I also wanted to speak on the behalf of others that I have helped in their situations for housing. So recently I helped a man fill out the New York State Housing Emergency application, and I could tell he was very distressed. He was pending a court case to be evicted, which the city police would end up handing that out and evicting him from his home. It took us a while. I could tell there was embarrassment based on how he lost his job during this pandemic. I did the best that I could to help him with it. This is a grown man. He has a child, and me, of all people, I didn't even realize I had the power to help somebody, and that was based on me having education and access. I had a laptop for him to use. I had time. I had resources for him. So for me to be a community member that's helping another community member, but we can't get that kind of help from you. That's where this issue is. I feel as though I have very little power compared to what power you have, but in this case, I guess that's not that. Because I was the one that helped that man with the application, you didn't. I was the one worried about where that man was going to sleep when the police officers would come and evict him from his home. I did that, not you. And so I came to this meeting to speak on behalf of helping other community members, even when I feel powerless. Clearly, I have some power, and this is why I'm here. I'm not only speaking on behalf of myself, because I also am just concerned for other people, but I have to be a voice for the voiceless. Because, again, that man doesn't have the resources or the power to show up to these meetings. You were also going to deny me access to this meeting originally. So now you're cutting off two means of communication here to try to speak to you on behalf of the issues where you're trying to take money from. You're trying to take money away from people for housing, to fix a roof. Do you know how many people in the city their roofs are probably falling apart? And you're worried about the roof here? You don't live here. You don't have to house children here. You don't have to house families here. This has to be an issue. This has to be something that is important to you. This comes down to your morals. This has nothing to do with where you stand and this comes down to what you believe. Do you believe that people should have access to housing? You have us dancing around the issue. No, that's the direct question. Do you believe people should have housing? You have housing. Do you believe you should be granted that? Housing it's a necessity, not a privilege. It is a necessity, like running water. What would you do with no running water? What would your children do with no running water? I think if we are going to allocate funds, it definitely should not be going to a roof where you do not house people. You do not feed people. You do not feed families. You have to have roofs for people. Community members that keep your businesses running so people can show up to work the next day. Not concerned about whether or not if their landlord's going to come fix something. You're using this money for a roof in a building, and a building that is not nearly as important as the buildings that are housing the people in your community. So again, my question, direct, we're not running around the bushes. Do you believe people should have housing? If so, allocate those funds where they need to go, not to this building. Thank you.
That's what advocacy looks like. When you come in here to talk for other people and not only about your own. And when you care about other people's well-being and not only your own.
We have a letter to read. This is from Nancy Applebaum from Davis Street. This is short. Yeah. Regarding the American Rescue Plan funds, I would like to see a plan put forward for public comment before money is dribbled out for projects. Crises in the community that have been exacerbated by COVID should be prioritized, such as the opioid epidemic, HIV, mental health, and public health funding for more generally, as well as housing, education, and challenges faced by small businesses and nonprofits. Outreach to improve vaccination rates is still an ongoing concern, while infrastructure improvements could certainly be part of that plan. Other priorities related to the pandemic need to be laid out, and I think there are needs that the public comment at every stage of the process. Nancy Applebaum.
Do I need to keep this on? Do you want me to keep it on? Okay. My name is Valerie Hotchkiss. I am not a Binghamton City resident. However, I am a owner of a small business in Binghamton. I'm a landlord. Is it okay to speak? Okay. So I'm a social worker by trade, and I in the building where I do my practice, I also rent out other space for other practitioners. And during COVID, a number of people left because they needed to, and telehealth came. And so I've been attempting to rent a few offices. So I advertised on Facebook and on Craigslist and in front of the building. And it says office space, clearly office space, and I've had probably 75 contacts with me that say, can I rent that apartment? And people were kind of begging, could I just rent the room then? Because I have my own dishes. No, it's a commercial office space, but there was a lot of desperation. Okay, when I was in 1995, I was working for Project Uplift for the homeless. It was very difficult to place people with mental health disorders and drug addiction at that time, and often when I'd find a place that was suitable with social services funds, my client would say, oh, I can't live there. That building is filled with drugs. That was in 95. So I'm well aware of the housing problems, and they've continued to today. I've never been to one of these meetings, and I'm not a natural speaker, so I apologize. Last summer, there were a number of people found on my property in Binghamton who were sleeping there overnight. And I had to contact the police to kind of supervise, because I feel for them. I want them to be safe, but I can't have them sleeping in my parking lot. So that was, and there's other evidence of people being there when I'm not there because I leave stuff. So I know there's a great shortage and a great need. And I also am speaking to how desperate, one of our basic needs is housing and food. And if those needs are met, then we can grow. And so I guess I'm pleading for the good use of funds to echo what other people have said here tonight about improving housing and people's basic needs. And I appreciate what you do. I am embarrassed to say that I don't know enough about it and how it all works and how you make decisions.
You have 1 minute.
And boy, that went fast. But thank you for hearing me.
Hello. So I wasn't gonna speak because this is really nerve-wracking, but I just want to say thank you to everyone who spoke. Really much appreciate it.
Can you please state your name and address, please?
We definitely need those voices in our community. My name is Daniela. I'm from the north side. So while I was sitting here, I was looking at you guys. And Giovanni, I know you because you used to be an old Starbucks customer of mine. Venti caramel macchiato, extra shot, upside down, Yeah. But after COVID, I remember when we opened back up, you came in as a customer and you started ranting about COVID, about how it's a hoax. And started talking about how masks are stupid and how you don't think we need to be wearing them. And you started going on and on and on and on. And that was uncomfortable for me as a barista to be hearing that. And I was really ashamed of you because I liked you as a customer. You were pretty cool, but until you said that. And I was really surprised sitting here watching you sit there like, wow, that type of person is like able to sit in the position you're in right now. That's pretty scary. It's not cool. Also, Maggie, why you keep chewing your gum like a cow? That's very inappropriate and unprofessional. I don't appreciate that. You just been like chewing your gum, like sitting here like you don't care, like none of y'all have masks on. We've been getting a bunch of cases. Like, this is my first time being here, and I don't like it. Wow. I'm like so shocked seeing you here, Giovanni. That sucks. Well, anyways, I really hope y'all don't spend that money on the roof. Also, that was my son that spoke. He feels strongly about not seeing cops around his school either. I don't think there's a reason why there's 2 cops hanging around Theodore Roosevelt School. For what? Every single morning I see them. Every single afternoon I see them. Why? Why do we need them there? We have crossing guards. Why do we need them there? Something's got to change. Y'all need to take into consideration everything that everyone here spoke. Please do, because if not, shit is going to get real here. And I hope y'all prepared. Matter of fact, I hope y'all not prepared, because y'all don't know what's coming.
You know me, I'm John Solak. I always wanted to be the oldest person at a public meeting, and I think I've achieved my goal tonight. I'm not here to dispute anything that anybody has said. The number one guy you want to blame is Harvey Stanger. That's the number one guy. Gentleman came here, asked the question, how much do you get for the university? And the answer is, close your eyes. What do you see? You get nothing. And Ithaca, Cornell and Ithaca College pay payments in lieu of taxes. Binghamton University gives you bupkis. Worse than that, these student housing projects are abated, some of them up to 28 years. 28 years, zero tax. So this is why we're going broke. You know, the Newman building at 50 Front Street, you know, and the tax payment, the payment in lieu of taxes used to be like under 10 years. They used to be to create industrial jobs. Now they're being used for apartments and student housing, and there's no tax on these things for 3 to 4 years. Nothing. Zero. He's collecting $100,000 a month, $200,000 a month. He's paying nothing. So that's why we're behind the 8 ball. You know, I'd like to see the COVID victims, and I think it can be established because we've had many people die at Lourdes Hospital. They have a death certificate. I'd like to see something done for them. I mean, I had a close relative who died 2 months ago at Lourdes Hospital. What are you going to do for him? What are you going to do for his family? Nothing. So this is like the tobacco money where, you know, we got to care for these people that Willow Point. We need the tobacco money. And sure enough, they bonded out. They borrowed $60 million against the tobacco settlement. They made a $20 million library out of a strip plaza, made people richer. And that's what it is. So I'm looking for that fair and just city. If you can get me a ticket, I'll be out tonight. There's no question about it because I want it. And, you know, I called one of these navigators, you know. The hospital says, you know, you're old. You're going to the nursing home soon. Well, I know that. I'd like some help. We're going to put you in touch with a navigator. So this woman calls me. She says, I'm the navigator. I said, great to see you because I don't want to fill out any paperwork. I'd like you to do it for me. And she says, have you tried 211? So it's an endless bureaucratic shuffle. Now here's the problem with $46 million. Even if you spend it all on housing, you're talking about 200 or 300 people being housed. You know, you got $250,000 per unit, Canal Plaza, First Ward Action Council. If you put approved a project today, you know, you're looking at $300,000 or $400,000 a unit. A lot of this is because the university has tied up all the tradesmen. So they don't need small jobs anymore when they can go to work in Johnson City for Binghamton University. So we got big problems in this community. I don't know if they can be solved. You know, but I do know this, that I asked the mayor when he first took office, I said, would you spend a night at the Binghamton Housing Authority? Would you couch surf? And it's the only affirmative answer that I ever got from the mayor of Binghamton. He said, no, I won't spend a night at the Binghamton Housing Authority. my aunt wanted a new house, a bigger house. And her husband told her, my uncle said, you can't take care of the house you got now. So I would say that the city of Binghamton and Jared Cram on the Binghamton Housing Board can't take care of the Binghamton Housing Authority now. So what are we going to do? What are we going to do? We need to collect taxes. We need to end this insanity of these 20-year pilots. And the IDA,
You have 1 minute left.
who nobody elects, gives out these things. They're going to do a big thing with them all now. 28 years. Guy's putting up nothing. So, look, it's, you know, to my fellow human beings here, it's going to be a rough, prepare yourself, but you're not going to get too much action here. And if you do, it's all going to be drained out by the nonprofit executives, a whole class of people that do nothing but live off bottom feeders. I'm sick of it. I want social justice too. So I say this, call these people's bluff. Put the lion's share of this into public housing. See if you can do it. See how many people you can house. And we need a housing court here. That's number one. We got drug courts, we got hangnail courts, but we got no housing court. That will keep things. And let's open up the files on the code complaints. You can do it. Get those code complaints. Every single code complaint, release them. Either you do it, I'll do it. Let's see how many complaints are out there.
Tark Abdelzim, Tremont, Binghamton. I'm just curious how genuine you were on Monday with your rage against misogyny, your feministic fury, Gio, over the B word, when we have a sitting mayor who has abused his power and used public dollars to extract sexual favors from women. What are you going to do about it? You going to investigate it now? I would imagine so, because with such rage against misogyny, with such feministic fury, Gio, you really have to, right? Because if not, then you've just demonstrated once again what we all know. I would never use the word B. I never did. That's a lie. Because it's inaccurate. I like to speak with precision with my language. I would go with phony. I would go with fraud. I would go with partisan hack way before I went with that disgusting word. But I look forward to seeing how genuine you are to really addressing the harms of misogyny and patriarchy and sexism. Secondly, it seems that there's a misunderstanding about these recovery dollars. Because I didn't think it'd be possible to one-up the absurdity of spending $660,000 on a roof at City Hall for a leak that's been there since 2013 until our Democratic County Executive, Jason Garner, made a shameful and morally indefensible decision to carve $2 million to attract a developer to the IBM Country Club that's been sitting abandoned for decades with an RFP that cites significant demand for market rate housing for young professionals and retiring seniors. As you can see, my rage is bipartisan. I don't care what party label's in front of your name. I care about whether or not you are committed to service with integrity and excellence. You're responsive to the needs in the communities, and you're advancing the ideas of justice and equity. And both of you, here in the city and at the county, are absolute epitomes of how this unprecedented opportunity is going to be wasted and squandered. And I see this all over the country. I see incredible leadership pushing forward with inclusive, innovative partnerships, committing funds around initiatives that center those who were most harmed. I did not think I would see the worst leadership in my own backyard. From the county executive, the mayor, and his rubber stamping council. And I've shared everything I'm sharing with you with Mr. Garner. It's disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting. So let's put this in perspective. Home ownership, something all you white people understand a little better. When we had the 2011 flood and white homeowners had their properties damaged, and I worked with homeowners to bring in FEMA dollars, Carol, how would you have felt if after I brought in those FEMA dollars, I then gave it to Mark Yanati downtown and said, develop the corner of State and Court Street? How would you have felt? Pissed off. Maybe she would have said, this is a joke. That's what this money is for. It's for recovery from a disaster.
1 minute left.
There are only two criterias that you really need to use as your checklist as to whether or not this is a worthy investment. Are you minimizing the harms of poverty, and are you minimizing the harms of racism? That's it. So, does the roof, did that minimize the harms of poverty for our residents? No. Did it minimize the harms of racism? No. It's an ineligible and ridiculous and morally indefensible project. Those who are suffering from the maladies of poverty, those who are experiencing the violence of racism, were disproportionately impacted by pandemic, by an unprecedented disaster, and those recovery dollars are theirs. You are stewards of them, and you should be responding, centering, and addressing their needs. I look forward to what you're going to do next.
I'm Barb Donnelly. I live outside the city limits, but I'm director of Outreach Ministries at St. Patrick's and St. Thomas, right over at 9 Leroy. I'd like to invite every one of you to come and see the clients that are at our table every single day. There are homeless. There are families now in cars. We have a family living in a U-Haul. They come and get prepared food because there's nowhere to cook it in some of these hotels. I realize the hotels are running between $18,000 and $20,000 a day we're paying to put these people in housing. That's $500,000 a month. It's $6 million a year. We could build a whole bunch of tiny houses somewhere in Broome County. But I would like to invite you to come and see what we've seen. Since the pandemic, we've been functioning since 2015. Our numbers are up 300%. We get food from Broome Bounty. They donate it every day from our local grocery stores, and we give food distribution out to anyone who comes. We don't ask ID. Our numbers are up, the homeless are up, and the homeless are more families with children. I'd like you to come see the children eat sitting on our blacktop because they don't have a yard, they're living in a car. It's increased over 8 weeks. I can't even tell you. Right now I know 21 families living in U-Hauls because they're $19 a day, and their stimulus money is gone paying for a hotel. So please reconsider your money, and I would like to invite every one of you to come and see what we see over there. Thank you for listening.
Just interrupt 1 second. I did take a tour over St. Pat's, and they need they're moving over to St. Cyril's, and they need some refrigeration. And so I was going to talk to you all about that, but I'll get to you later. But
Thank you.
It's like $40,000 or something for the refrigerator.
Yeah, we're going to still be at St. Pat's, but we're also going to have, we're going to be at the new building over the Damon Hall. It's bigger over to St. Cyril's in that demographic area. There'll be a lot of people. So we're going to be functioning out of 2 places, but we need a lot of refrigeration over to St. Cyril's. So thank you for listening. I appreciate it.
Thank you, everyone, for coming forward and speaking. I think we will now go ahead and move on to our the rest of our agenda.
of a wide range of income levels. The plan will include graphic and narrative summaries of how these goals can be realized, as well as a list of actionable items that the city can undertake in order to realize the plan.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, passes. Please continue, Councilman.
Thank you, Madam President. I make a motion to list the project as a type 1 action under seeker.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, please continue, Councilman Strong.
Thank you. The Planning Department and the city's consultant, Whittam Planning and Design PLLC, are directed to provide notice to any involved and interested agencies and to proceed with the seeker process.
Okay, so that statement doesn't need any vote, right, so we can move on. Thank you, Councilman Strong. All right, so moving on to the preferred agenda. Would anyone like to pull anything from the preferred agenda before we proceed? Would anyone like to pull anything from the preferred agenda before we proceed? Okay. Thank you. Mr. Clerk, can you please introduce the preferred agenda items?
Okay, the first item on the preferred agenda is introductory ordinance 21-73, considered in finance. And this is an ordinance to amend the 2021 risk management budget for legal services.
Any discussion? Okay, next.
Next, we have introductory ordinance 21-74, considered in finance. And this is an ordinance to amend the 2021 engineering budget for personal services.
Any discussion? Okay, next.
Next is introductory ordinance 21-77, considered in finance. And this is an ordinance to amend the 2021 capital budget for the 2021 through 2022 Consolidated Local Street and Highway Improvement Program and accept funds from the touring program through New York State DOT.
Any discussion? Next.
Next is introductory ordinance 21-78, considered in finance, and this is an ordinance to amend the 2021 Binghamton-Johns City Joint Sewage Treatment Facility budget to transfer funds for partial funding of an environmental benefit project on Fuller Hollow Creek.
Any discussion? Next.
Next is introductory ordinance 21-79, considered in finance, and this is an ordinance amending the 2021 budget to allocate American Rescue Plan Act funds for development of affordable housing by the First Ward Action Council.
Any discussion? Next.
Next is introductory resolution 21-64, considered in finance. And this is a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with GHD Consulting Services to pay for laboratory fees for CSO, LTCP, post-construction monitoring.
Any discussion? Okay, next.
Next is introductory resolution 21-66, considered in the Public Works and Parks Committee. And this is a resolution authorizing the City of Binghamton to accept a donation from Dick's Sporting Goods Foundation to support parks and recreation programming.
Any discussion? Okay. Next.
And then lastly is introductory resolution 21-68, considered in planning. This is a resolution amending a grant from Local Initiative Support Corporation for the remediation and resale of zombie properties within the City of Binghamton and salary funding for the vacant property employees.
Any discussion?
Madam President, motion to accept the preferred agenda as submitted.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Great. Full roll call, please.
Councilman Scaringi?
Aye.
Councilwoman Riley?
Aye.
Councilwoman Friedman?
Aye.
Councilman Burns?
Aye.
Councilman Strawn?
Aye.
Councilman Scanlon?
Aye.
And President Resnetti.
Aye.
That's 7 ayes, 0 nays.
Thank you. Moving on to our non-preferred agenda. We have some items here. First up, we have introductory ordinance 21-71, considered in finance. Councilman Strawn?
Thank you, Madam President. I ask council for unanimous consideration of introductory ordinance 21-71, an ordinance amending the 2021 home budget to adjust for previous year's unused funds and to bring the budget in balance with IDIS reporting system at HUD.
Have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion?
Call the question, Madam President.
Question to call. Roll call, please.
Councilman Scaringi?
Aye.
Councilwoman Riley?
Aye.
Councilwoman Freeman?
Aye.
Councilman Burns?
Aye.
Councilman Strawn?
Aye.
Councilman Scanlon?
Aye.
President Rusnetti?
Aye.
That's 7 ayes, 0 nays.
Thank you. Next item is introductory ordinance 21-72, considered in finance. Councilman Strawn.
Thank you, Madam President. I ask council for unanimous consideration of introductory ordinance 21-72, ordinance amending the 2021 CDBG budget to adjust for previous year's unused funds and to bring the budget in balance with IDIS reporting system at HUD.
Second.
Any discussion?
Call the question, Madam President.
Question be called. Roll call, please.
Councilman Scaringi?
Aye.
Councilwoman Riley?
Aye.
Councilwoman Friedman?
Aye.
Councilman Burns?
Aye.
Councilman Strawn?
Aye.
Councilman Scanlon?
Aye.
President Rusnetti?
Aye.
That's 7 ayes, 0 nays.
Next item is introductory ordinance 21-75, considered in finance. Councilman Strawn.
Thank you, Madam President. I stand and ask for unanimous consideration of introductory ordinance 21-75, an ordinance to amend the Code of the City of Binghamton, Chapter 124, Personnel Policies, Article 8, 124-40.f2, salary increases.
Second.
Any discussion?
Call the question, Madam President.
Question be called. Roll call, please.
Aye.
Councilwoman Riley?
Aye.
Councilwoman Friedman?
Aye.
Councilman Burns?
Aye.
Councilman Strawn?
Aye.
Councilman Scanlon?
Aye.
President Rusnetti?
Aye.
That's 7 ayes, 0 nays.
Next item is introductory ordinance 21-76, considered in finance. Councilman Strawn.
Thank you, Madam President. I ask council for unanimous consideration of introductory ordinance 21-76, an ordinance to amend the 2021 police budget to accept insurance recovery to replace police vehicle damaged in an accident.
Second.
Any discussion?
Call the question, Madam President.
Question be called. Roll call, please.
Councilman Scaringi?
Aye.
Councilwoman Riley?
Aye.
Councilwoman Friedman?
Aye.
Councilman Burns?
Aye.
Councilman Strawn?
Aye.
Councilman Scanlon?
Aye.
President Rusnetti?
Aye.
That's 7 ayes, 0 nays.
Next item is introductory resolution 21-65, considered in finance. Councilman Strawn.
Thank you, Madam President. I ask council for unanimous consideration of introductory resolution 21-65, a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with Bonadio and Company LLP to assist in compliance and reporting related to the American Rescue Plan Act.
Second.
Any discussion?
Call the question, Madam President.
Question be called. Roll call, please.
Councilman Scaringi?
Aye.
Councilwoman Riley?
Aye.
Councilwoman Friedman?
Aye.
Councilman Burns?
Aye.
Councilman Strawn?
Aye.
Councilman Scanlon?
Aye.
President Rusnetti?
Aye.
That's 7 ayes, 0 nays.
And the last item is introductory resolution 21-67, considered an MPA. Councilman Scanlon.
I ask for unanimous consideration for introductory resolution 21-67, a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter an extension agreement with the Binghamton City School District for school resource officers at the high school and middle school for 2021 and 2022.
Second.
Any discussion? Councilwoman Freeman.
Thank you, Madam President. Neither my opinions nor the data has changed since the last time we considered extending the agreement with the school resource officers. I would like to read the overview of an article, I guess, on the American Civil Liberties Union website. It says, over the past 50 years, our schools have become sites of increased criminalization of young people, a disturbing fact that is even truer for poor Black and Latino communities. Today, police officers assigned to patrol schools can legally use physical force on students, arrest and handcuff them, and bring the full weight of the criminal justice system to bear on kids who are simply misbehaving. The primary role of police in schools is to enforce criminal laws, and virtually every violation of a school rule can be considered a criminal act if viewed through this police-first lens. Though these police are often referred to as, quote, school resource officers, their legal power and attending actions reveal that this designation only serves to mask that their presence has transformed schools into another site of concentrated policing. Such policing marks the start of the school to prison pipeline, the entry point to the criminal justice system for too many kids, and fuels mass incarceration. To my knowledge, there has not been any extensive study on whether or not SROs actually do reduce violence in schools. The data shows that while school shootings are an incredibly devastating, horrific, traumatic thing, and it is imperative that we reduce the number of school shootings down to 0, the cure cannot be worse than the sickness. How does that idiom go? Did I get it? You know what I mean. The medicine cannot be worse than the disease. Whatever that idiom is, you know what I'm trying to say. So I don't believe, because there's no data to back up the fact that school resource officers do serve to reduce the number of school shootings, which is why they were introduced into schools in the first place. So until I see data showing that this is the most effective way to spend our tax dollars and the most effective way to protect our students and not criminalize and punish them for behavior that would otherwise just be considered misbehaving or acting up, then I cannot in good conscience vote in support of this. That's not to say that the school resource officers who are in our schools are not lovely people. I do work with them in my full-time job, but it's not about the individual officers. It's the fact that they should not be there in the first place. I have no doubt that they love and feel passionate about children. I get a sense, and from working with the SROs, that they do want to be there. But my question is then, why does it have to be in the capacity of a link to the criminal justice system? So since there is no data to show that this is an effective way to protect our students, I cannot vote in support of this. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councilwoman O'Reilly?
Thank you, Council President. This has been a topic of discussion several times, because this is not the first time we've had this or legislation surrounding the SROs come to our attention. And we then posed to the school board that we needed a robust assessment of the parents, an evaluation of the parents and students and their perspective of the SROs. And it was discussed. However, as my co-counsel woman said, we did not receive hardcore data. And the literature has shown overwhelmingly, be it anecdotal, be it by the police reports, that safety overall has not improved because SROs were in the building. As said previously, we must be able to separate the role from the people, because again, they are all very lovely, and they are great community members. But what SROs mean to populations that are overly harmed, minoritized communities, must be taken into effect, must be taken into account. And we cannot continue to do things as we have always done and expect different results. We've heard community members talk about the allocation of resources, and we need to be good stewards of the money we spend. I cannot, again, support the system that has not shown to be beneficial by the evidence provided, and without the conclusive evidence, the subjective data that we requested from the parents and the students, I'm not sure that this is the best use of our resources. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Roll call, please. Oh, call question?
Oh,
Question to call?
I'm sorry, I was.
Call the
the
question.
Question to call.
Councilman
Roll.
Scaringi.
Aye.
Councilwoman Riley.
Nay.
Councilwoman Friedman.
Nay.
Councilman Burns.
Aye.
Councilman Strawn.
Aye.
Councilman Scanlon.
Aye.
President Rosnetti.
Aye.
That's 5 ayes, 2 nays, Riley and Friedman.
Thank you, everyone. Now we move on to council member comments, and looks like tonight we'll be starting with District 4. Councilwoman Friedman.
It's me, isn't it?
It's you.
I always love the meetings where public comment takes up most of it. I don't mind, oftentimes I feel like I dread long meetings, but this is the exception where it takes the burden off of us to do outreach, right? Outreach is one of the toughest, I would say the toughest parts of this job. We are each accountable to several hundred constituents, and isn't it so nice when they take time to come to us so we don't have to, they take that responsibility from us. A lot of what I was going to say was already said. I didn't prepare comments specifically because I wanted to wait to see what other people would say. And I do agree with a lot of what was said, that we are stewards of not just the ARPA funds, but the entire budget of the city of Binghamton, all of our, the tax funds, tax revenue, grants, all of that. People have entrusted us, and not just money, but, policies, legislation. People have entrusted us to make the decisions that they would make if they were in these seats. And I feel like I'm spinning my wheels because I feel like I'm saying the same things at every meeting. That how could we have meetings like this where we have an outpouring of passionate, I don't even want to call it rage because I think that's not the right word, but an outpouring of passion from the community and still not vote in the way that they are begging us to. And it's evidenced by the fact, as was mentioned, that people keep coming back over and over and over and over again, completely dissatisfied with what we're doing with their money and their lives. And I get frustrated because I feel like I hopefully am accountable to my constituents, and I don't feel like everybody here is, or at least the community at large, doesn't feel that way. And it's like I don't know how to change that. It's like most of us have other jobs where we get hired and we're accountable to our bosses, right? And we can get fired if we don't perform the requirements and the expectations of the job. And this is kind of different because, unless we do something egregious, like illegal or something like that, and get impeached, we have really good job security here. In that way, it's kind of nice, But in that situation, how then can we, it's kind of a double-edged sword. In that way, we can kind of do whatever we want. It doesn't really matter what what our constituents think of us in some way. And I would ask my fellow council members, how can we introduce that level of accountability that I feel like I'm craving, that the dozens of people who spoke are craving? how can we introduce that? Because something's missing, right? There's something missing here, that there's a disconnect between what people want and what we as a body, I keep saying we, what we as a body are doing. So that's a genuine, open-ended question. I invite all of my colleagues to answer that. I am curious to hear what you all, what your thoughts are on that. I think I try to limit my comments to 5 minutes, but sometimes my sense of time is a little off. I see Councilwoman Riley checking her watch, so that must mean I've been talking for too long. Okay. Well, anyway, I guess those are my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to Councilman Burns.
Thank you, Madam President. I think that tonight was remarkable. I was moved. I was heartbroken. You know, we have to make a priority to help people in our community. And I know that we all love the city. But tonight was, you know, I saw love. They reminded me that when I got sworn in, I talked about the prayer of St. Francis, and that I wanted to use that philosophy as I moved through my city council duties. And tonight, they put a lens on me. They put a new pair of glasses on me. And I want to thank them very much for coming. I hope, you know, everybody was been watching our meetings for the shouting and all that sort of thing, all the things that went down. But I'm going to be sending out a link to tonight's meeting to everybody I can, because it was the best presentation of the housing situation in our city, and they had a lot of answers for it, you know. And, you know, John Solak, I got to say, he did have a, you know, if we spent all $46 million, we wouldn't be able to house, you know, 500 people. I don't know if that's exactly right, but still, it's only $46 million. But, you know, we have to spread the $46 million around. That is true. But we have to, at least, we have to make a priority of helping our citizens. And I'll talk to everybody after about going over to St. Pat's to see Barb's, the lady that spoke last there. They have an operation over there feeding people. She sent me, she took me through the whole thing, and it is remarkable. It's not just food. They have clothing, they have rooms, the classrooms. They've taken over the whole St. Pat's. And now he wants his parish back, the father, so I guess. So they're going to move part of it over to First Ward. And they need some help. And I got a call today, and then I was going to talk to you all later about it, and I didn't know she was coming. But at any rate, tonight was very moving, and I thank everybody for coming. And it was, you were all great. If you're still listening out there, you were great. Thanks.
Councilman Strong?
Thank you, Madam President. Just a couple thoughts. I think some of the people, I agree, generally speaking, I agree with Councilman Burns. There are many people tonight that were very thoughtful, very respectful, very well reasoned, had a lot of facts and things that I want to consider. Just one brief comment that I made at the last meeting was just misconstrued by a couple people. I was not suggesting we don't do the right thing. I was suggesting that the two things aren't mutually exclusive, that we can do the right thing in the right way. For those people, I think the first three speakers were great. I think the third speaker talked about irresponsible slumlords. I think that there's a common theme that we've talked about when we had Mr. Schleider up here several weeks ago. I think there's a common theme that there's a lot of agreement here on that issue. Talking about code complaints, Mr. Solak said, open that up. I would have no problem with that. I think when people speak respectfully and are well-reasoned, I want to listen to them. I want to talk to them. I want to have more conversations with them. My eyes were open to a couple things tonight by those people that did that. And those people I would like to have further conversations with. Because when that happens, then things that we have agreement on, like potentially irresponsible slumlords and code complaints and things like that do affect housing, when people do it that way, it makes me at least want to have more conversations with them and talk about different ways that we can do that. And that's my thought of the right thing, the right way. Some other people, the attacks, the making fun. You feel like it's you paid $2 to get into a youth basketball game, and because the referee's making 50 cents to ref the game, that you have the right to just berate them. I have no place for that because they're not. I don't know whether they want to do the right thing because they're not even remotely respectful or anything else. Know me in my heart before you say that people around me are ashamed of me, because I don't believe that that's true. I mean, those kind of comments are reckless and ridiculous when we're trying to work together. To one of Councilwoman Friedman's points, I don't know why some people that were like that are here tonight do not represent the people that I'm accountable to. I don't know why some of those people choose not to come. I don't know. But not everybody agrees with every facet of that we're looking at. I do think the back to the code and those things, I think that is something that we can represent everybody in the same way. I don't know why some of those people don't come. I know there were some people here tonight, they left, they didn't say anything. I don't know. I can't speak for them. But I talk to them all the time, and they don't agree with everything that was said. So, the people that were here as a whole don't represent everybody that we are accountable to. So there's part of that answer, and I'm not sure why they don't come. I don't know. But I talk to them all the time, so they're out there. I had one more thought. So anyway, I think there's common ground on a lot of these issues that we can talk about. I think that, I just wanted to say that the broader funds, every organization that I've ever been a part of, from the finance end of things, and maybe that's part of my problem. That's why I think some of the speakers tonight were good for me to hear, because sometimes I'm looking at things from a bookkeeping, accounting, that type of perspective. But most organizations that get funding, grants, donations, try to broaden what they can use that for. And I just want to remind us that Mr. Shager told us the other night that even if money comes into the general fund, that we still maintain control of that. So that doesn't mean it's a dead issue at that point. But most organizations try to broaden the spectrum of what they can use that for. But I also understand that the broader uses of it should not be lost, even if that happens. So, but I'm willing to think about it a little bit differently than just looking at it so broadly as to what the intention of the money is for. So, thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to Mr. Scanlon.
Madam President, I have no comment tonight.
Okay. Councilman Scaringi.
Thank you, Madam President. Just a few things. Just want to thank everyone who came and spoke tonight so passionately about their beliefs. I definitely agree with Councilman Strawn. This landlord issue is definitely something that has come up a number of times, that we've made some initial headway with respect to discussions, and hopefully that's something that we can look at more in the future. I want to thank everybody who came out to the First Ward neighborhood cleanup that we held a few weeks ago. It was a lot of fun. and we hit quite a number of streets around Sunflower Park. We had another neighborhood meeting in the First Ward actually just this afternoon. I want to thank all of the city representatives who came down from Code, the Fire Marshal, Zoning. Believe it or not, we even had representation from Corporation Council actually. So it was really positive to meet with residents again and have some of the important city officials that are here that fill a lot of those roles to help to directly answer their questions about code issues and things that are currently going on. And lastly, if you've been a Binghamtonian for a long time, you probably know Mike Capaginatos from the Red Oak. Condolences and prayers to his family and his children, and may he rest in peace. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Councilwoman Riley.
Thank you, Council President. You all know, usually I come, I'm ready to present. But as you see, I've been very kind of emotional through the meeting. And you know that kills me, because I'm always ready to fight, and I never want you to see this side. But after Monday, I received so many phone calls about the treatment, I want to portray one thing, but then I treat you a different way. And you may not realize that happened. And this is something that bothered me that night, and I let it go. But after people saw the video and talked about the blatant disrespect, no one else was interrupted. No one else was shut down. And it continued. It continued unnecessarily. And I try to give you, Angela Riley, the same one all the time. I'm not going to yell at the top of my voice and pontificate for hours and then kiki it in the parking lot. I'm the same. I'm consistent. And it's very hard to come advocate for things we believe in, things we promised on our campaign trail, when we know it may never be realized. We fight for things, we advocate for things, and again, as I said last week, earlier this week, it's as if I'm speaking to the wall. Yeah, we talk about collaborative efforts and working as a team, but it was hard for me to watch Monday again, because I did feel as if I was the target for the constant, I'll just say, negative treatment. It did not represent what you intended to show as how we will work and function as a body. So it was tough. And then to hear from the young lady that talked about her inability to find housing, Ms. McLeod. She talked about doing things the right way, checking all the boxes, and still not being able to find housing. And it resonated with me, not only because that happened to me here in Binghamton. I had to send my CV ahead of some of my housing visits so that they knew that I had stable employment. But it also speaks to the stories I get on my phone, in my Facebook, when I'm walking the area. And I mean, I walk the entire 3rd District. You'll see me in Noma, you'll see me down by the river. It doesn't matter, because I want to be able to receive the information and bring it back to you all. But you can only take so much. You can only bring so much and carry so much for nothing. And it's not fair. It's not. So when someone brought up how they took the meeting and how I was treated, I couldn't take it anymore. I still am a little bit shaken, but this is not about me. In order to be an effective council, yes, we know that I represent the minority party, 3. But that does not mean we cannot really consider ideas, think about new concepts, and use the skills we have in our professional lives to improve. Again, this may not be your representative, the population you represent. I get that. But hear what is being said. Again, I told you, I've never been to Ely Park, but one of my neighbors on Davis loves to golf. He said, we need to look at Ely Park. I said, okay, I'm leaning on you because I represent you. And that's what we do. You know, I'm thinking, no, I could use that money for something else. I could use the tennis court money for something else. But if this is a priority for a subset that I am not familiar, I listen. We debate if we need to, but I listen and consider and then vote on their behalf. If it were up to me, yes, everything would go towards housing, everything would go to eliminating racism and respectability politics to get a house. Because it happens. And you may never have experienced that, but I have. And it's a lot. So I just wanted to let you all know that. And that's how I feel. And if we truly value the feelings of others, we will also include this. I want to also shout out the Parks and Rec Department. Because of the storms, we have had a number of trees falling in the 3rd. And there was a guy that did not have the equipment to handle this tree on Vincent Street. But he said because it was such a problem for the neighbors, he was going to try to use the equipment he had to do the best he could. And I said, that's admirable. I thank you. He said, yeah, the real tree man won't be here for a long time, but because we need to get it done, I'm going to do it. So again, I can't think of his name, but you know who you are. And that's what I see when we walk the city streets. All of our team members working hard to do the best they can for this community. And we ought to be doing the same for this community because we are compensated to do what we're doing here for the community. I also lost a neighbor. This neighbor and her family have been in Binghamton for years. I don't want to put all the business out there in case they didn't want it known and shared. But she taught me about Binghamton, the old days and how it is now. And she was one of the best watchmen on my block. She would tell me how many packages came and if Taylor went straight home or went to Kavanaugh's first. And I love that. And that's what makes community. And again, you may not be excited to hear that, but those are the things that make communities thrive. Knowing each other and building relationship. And losing someone like that shifts neighborhoods, shifts families. And so my heart and condolences go out to that family. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. As I've said before, when you're the last one, a whole lot of the things that you want to say have been said. I agree on many levels with many of my colleagues here on both sides of the political aisle. Listening to our constituents is what we're here for. I appreciate the passion that folks show who are here, who show up. I appreciated the respect the most showed tonight. I also appreciate the passion and care of those who reach out to me, and I'm sure I'm not the only one outside of this setting. I listen to you as well. It isn't easy to make it all work, to make it all work perfect. I think it is unfair to say that we don't care. I think it's unfair to say that we're not listening to all. It's not easy, but it is the job that we signed up for, and we do have a responsibility to listen to everyone. I'm very thankful for the discussions that we had tonight. I was able to, well, certainly more than last week, hear a lot of the concerns. I think, again, a lot of it had to do with the way folks presented themselves. I appreciated that. I won't go into last week's or meeting's details. To say that it's, because I don't want it to be about me. Just like Councilwoman Riley said, there's certain things that are happening. It's not just about the one individual person. To say that it was hurtful and frustrating wouldn't be enough. But nonetheless, I'm here to do the best that I can with my colleagues. I appreciate the work that everybody does. I appreciate the long meetings like tonight. Maggie, I do want to say, because you're relatively new and I feel bad, I'm really sorry for something coming towards you tonight. You weren't elected to this position. I'm sorry for that. But again, I just want to thank everybody for being here tonight, those who, my colleagues, speakers, and those who come to us on the street and talk to us about their concerns. And I guess with that, I will ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you. Have a good night.